welcome to Mythbechattin. I am Dan Barber, vocalist for Mythbegotten.
I'm Connor Hoffman, guitarist for Mythbegotten.
And I am Joe Sopchak, other for Mythbegotten.
And we are here for episode 4 to discuss Beneath Exham Priory, track 4 on our album, The Tales from the Unseelie Court. Do we want to start out as we've been doing with just kind of how this one came to be?
I think so. This one...
Which means I am gonna be quiet for a few minutes. Let's
Joel,
go.
go make a sandwich.
I was trying to actually remember. I think that this one was another one that you brought a riff first to a guitar practice. And I think it was the pre-chorus riff first.
Yes. Yeah, it was the pre-chorus riff and accompanying lead were the first thing that came out for this one, which I wrote. And then I remember us expanding on it over at Brandon's and creating the verse and chorus riffs. And I seem to recall kind of the general structure of this one coming together pretty quickly.
Yeah, this one, at least the first version of the song was very much like in-person collaboration that I think we knocked out over like a couple nights of just hanging out after band practice at our previous drummer's place. And some of the, I think, weirdness of the middle section of the song probably accounts to where our minds were at some of those band practices.
Yep.
Because I definitely remember there being a lot of like, does this make sense as a way to flow from this? I don't know. Just throw it in and we'll think about it later. Actually, the beginning of the song initially was way more involved as well, but I think we ended up cutting a bit.
Yeah, I think so. We had a tendency in the early days to write very ambitiously in ways that may not have made sense for where we were at, and be a little meandery.
It's a good thing that's not publicly documented anywhere.
Oh, yeah, no. There aren't, like, videos or anything.
Yeah, but, where did the lyrical ideas for this one come from initially? Because this is another one that this is the one that probably went through the most changes.
It is.
Lyrically.
So this one originally was supposed to be about a chapter in the Song of Ice and Fire series. I want to say it's in it's either in the second book or the third book, but I think it's the second book, where Arya Stark is at the skin people alive. The Boltons is at the Bolton fort at Harrenhal, and she meets Jacques and Dagar and starts doing these assassinations and like freaking out Bolton's dudes. And they're like, oh, there's this like entity that they call the Ghost of Harrenhal, and it's just like Arya going around murking people. And it's one of my favorite parts of the books. The Arya chapters are the best chapters.
We love children committing murder.
Yeah. I mean,
viewers may be more familiar with this story from the rather popular HBO documentary series, A Game of Thrones.
Yes. And we did...
Oh, is that about the same people? No.
Yeah. We did, in part, I think, end up not going with it because at the time, especially...
This was like right when the show was blowing up.
So inescapable. And I think also it was around when I started to kind of sour on that property. There's things I still, and characters I still love from A Song of Ice and Fire, but I have issues. I don't like George R. R. Martin's prose. But anyway, so we decided it should be about something else. And Connor and I, for better or for worse, are big H.P. Lovecraft fans. And The Rats in the Walls was always one of my favorite stories of his. And I don't know when exactly it clicked, but I just felt like the kind of like creepy pre-chorusy bit and just the general vibe of it really fit for telling that story. And then it was just a really fun lyric writing opportunity. I had a blast writing the lyrics for this one with a lot of input from you two. But I think some of my favorite lyrics end up being in here, especially in the third verse.
Now,
in terms of... Oh, sorry.
If you're also familiar with the works of H.P. Lovecraft, and particularly familiar with the story The Rats in the Walls, you may currently be thinking, uh-oh. And don't worry, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So to get to that, H.P. Lovecraft, I feel like, is rightfully very well known for being a racist weirdo, and that definitely plays into this story. So deconstructing that and how do we tell this story and be like, capture what's awesome about the story well, but kind of leave the problematic, like, shittiness out of it, or kind of refocus it in a way that also kind of tracks with at least how I've always read The Rats in the Walls in terms of the intentionality. Which is, probably wrong, just because it's H.P. Lovecraft, so it was probably meant to just be like, imagine finding out you're Welsh. Wouldn't that be terrifying?
But that was like, I think when we were coming into the sort of home stretch of like envisioning this album as a project and revisiting this song, that was one of the big challenges with it, was trying to think of a way to rework the lyrics in a way that was not simply eliding the racist parts of the story as if to pretend that they weren't there, but to in some way try to like reinterpret and like remix the story into something that was kind of about the same events but from a slightly different perspective. And so I think it was like Dan struck on the idea of making the focus of the story less about like the horror of recognizing like miscegenation in your bloodline and more about the horror of like generations of colonial violence and what that does to a person and a people.
Yeah, and just kind of like that, the moment of horror of realizing that this familial legacy that you saw as something good and honorable and like aspirational is in fact a lie, and your family legacy is this like horrible, violent, oppressive force that still like scars its place of origin. But yeah, I think ultimately ended up working well for the song and was just a fun, especially once we put our slant on it, an interesting like mindset to get into and really like feeling the lyrics and the kind of like descent into madness.
That's why it is an approach. Keep going. Sorry.
Oh no. I was the third verse and the outro. I'm very much trying to lean into that, and it always makes it very fun to perform.
Yeah, and
the laugh at the end is great.
The whole like reframing of Lovecraft stories to like sort of get a more modern, updated look at like the actual horror behind them, as well as a mindset that I am very excited to potentially revisit at some point. He has a lot of really good stories.
He does. And I think a lot of them can like really be recontextualized in interesting ways. A point of order that should be mentioned. If you are a power metal fan, you may be aware that there is a song by the Seven Kingdoms called In the Walls, which is also about the Lovecraft story, The Rats in the Walls. I, upon finding this out, was very distraught because at that point we had already written but not released Beneath Exham Priory, or Ghost Rats, as was its working title, because it took us forever to land on a name. But I feel like it is an important matter of note that Beneath Exham Priory, the original version, was written around 2013. In the Walls came out in 2016. Ergo, no biting of anyone's turf on this one. Not that, I mean, everyone's written a song about Cthulhu, so it doesn't really matter. But I still feel like mentioning.
I also
and the crazy thing about Seven Kingdoms too is that they didn't. And the crazy thing about Seven Kingdoms too is that they didn't recontextualize anything. You know, they're dropping names. They are celebrating Lovecraft's legacy in their track. Fucking come at me, Seven Kingdoms.
Are we starting beef here?
I would like to say that I really like Seven Kingdoms. I saw
Connor,
them.
we're not on Spotify anymore. We need the exposure.
It's true. We need this beef. I've seen Seven Kingdoms twice. Once opening for Blind Guardian and once opening for Unleash the Archers, and they were really great. I feel like especially their past few releases have been like really cool, getting like a very distinct vibe to it. So back to the songwriting of the piece. I feel like a good point to jump back in is smash cut to approximately 2012, and we are at not at Vassar. Connor, we're at your family's place, and it's you, me, and Joe, and we are going over some of the, at that point, Hounds of Anon songs, and review some of it with Joe. And I know our main thing off the bat was just like, organ would be cool. Basically, was sort of our prompt.
Yeah,
and
I don't even remember what was going to go in that spot.
His thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so originally, I mean, I still, somewhere in the depths of my PC, have the demo version of this that we recorded back in, like, 2013.
We should release that for fun sometime.
No. I don't think we got to be doing all that.
That's fine.
This is probably one of, if not the roughest, production tracks that made it, or that's like on the album, and it is like light years ahead of what this demo sounds like. Especially because that demo was recorded still on my giant fucking 88 key keyboard that I got sick of lugging around everywhere and sold. But so it would it didn't have I mean, I guess we had real violin, but the flutes were not even samples. They were synthesized flute sounds and
off of a Roland keyboard or whatever it was.
If it's good
Yamaha,
enough for old Turisas and Ensiferum.
Yeah,
I mean that was the thought at the time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's that. The organ patch was also it was a lot less granularly editable because the organ that made it onto the actual album is a sample library of an organ where you can directly pull stops basically to adjust the sound of the organ on the fly. You can separate out that the pedals on the organ will have different stops pulled for them, so a little bit more bombast, more trumpets. You have the sub-bass down there really just rumbling away, and it's a sample of a real organ with all those different stops pulled. Whereas on the keyboard, the organ was just an octave below middle C. We start throwing in some of the sounds that are more characteristic of the pedals, and anything that goes below there is just we're just gonna treat it as pedals. But even then, like, the sound patch wasn't that great, so like I was very excited to actually get a much better organ sound going on this version of the track than in the previous one.
There was a lot of deliberation at one point because we kind of, through various things, we have access sort of to a couple of pipe organs if we really wanted. And we thought it could be cool to record it on actual pipe organ, because Joe's done some organ playing.
I mean, I took organ lessons throughout college, so yeah, I was actually like kind of stoked about like, oh man, it would be really cool to actually get on an actual instrument and record that. And then the reality of how that would interact with our production pipeline sort of dictated that no, this is actually not even close to worth it, because like
recording pipe organs is hard, it turns out.
Yeah, like the minimum mic requirements usually end up being like you need at least 4 mics in the room, and you need a mic stand that can suspend them like 20 feet in the air. Then there's also the very simple fact that not every pipe on a real pipe organ is going to be perfectly in tune. Mm-hmm. And if that is then like being layered into a recording with a bunch of other instruments that are perfectly in tune, because it's a sample library and they usually tune before they record those. There's the fact that you wouldn't have like each of the like individual tracks like individually mixable. Like the left hand and right hand and pedals would all just be on the same track, and you know, you can't really control the relative levels of those things. You're stuck with whatever reverb the space that it's in provides you, which is going to be different from whatever convolution you're using on the in your DAW probably. So like it was one of those things where I was just like, man, this would be really cool. Nightmare. The more I thought about it, I was just like, oh, this is going to make Connor so sad. I don't want to make Connor this sad.
Yeah. We should get a video sometime, just if we're able to get the opportunity of you performing the solo on a pipe organ just for fun. You know,
I'm gonna have to relearn it, but
yeah.
This was, I think, the first track that we did start using some other real instrumentation on. Because the very first track that we did was Maui, and then after that was Exham and Lothian, back on those singles / doubles, I think we were calling them. But
right.
But yeah, so it's the first one that has like real violin playing. Shout outs again to Andy. Yeah. And that has real soprano vocals on it as well, sort of layered in with the choirs to give a little bit more of a realistic contour to those. Shout out again to Corinne, as always. Including extra shout outs, because I always write parts just under the assumption that if a person is ever singing it, they simply have to get good if they're going to sing it, and that I shouldn't be concerned with making their life easy. This is something that I have been yelled at for before, and I will not budge. But I did
it's amazing
write...
that your roommates haven't murdered you.
I'm, we're counting days. But there is a high C sharp that Corinne has to hit in this track, and she just absolutely nailed it on each of the takes that I had her do. So shout out again to that.
Yeah.
Yes. Not even the highest note that she hits on the album either. I think the highest note was in Multi. Actually, it was a high E.
Yeah. At the very end, there's that upper harmony.
Yeah. But yeah, actually starting to like work with some real instruments, some real choir vocals and everything was a really great, like, I don't know, as a good touch that I was really happy with.
Yeah, it's great working with Andy, great working with Corinne, and thrilled with how those elements turned out. I love how like the different guitar parts on the track turned out. There's a lot of black metal influence in this one. I feel like with that initial pre-chorus riff, I was listening to a lot of like Cradle of Filth and Keep of Callison at the time. And that was definitely a point of influence. And I think that ended up carrying through Connor with a lot of like what you wrote for it too. So a lot of tremolo and just kind of like general sort of like black metal motifs. I apologize for mentioning Cradle of Filth. There's immediately after saying that this one was pretty black metal. I know I'm going to get some hate from that, but I'm wearing a Dark Throne shirt. Like it's okay.
I mean, it's not that much more black metal than some Cradle songs. So, though, yeah, I mean, I think from my end too, like a lot of the guitar, I can still hear traces of, I think some of the things that were really hitting for me at that time in the early 2010s was like Obscura's Cosmogenesis and Protest the Hero's Fortress, which are neither particularly black metal at all. But I think particularly in the bridge was me attempting to kind of poorly ape some of the ways in which like Obscura's guitarists would use like what's the word? Real sequence is what it's called. Yep. A sequence where the subsequent segments are exact transpositions of the first segment, while a tonal sequence is a sequence where the subsequent segments are diatonic transpositions of the first. Anyway. And I think that the ways that the little like suggestions of different keys that the bridge goes through, and then the section where it is really just kind of moving according to like note tendency, and the whole idea of the key sort of falls apart for a few bars. That was definitely like me in 2011 trying to understand Obscura music that I wasn't understanding very well at the time.
Also, I think I'm mistaken. I think it's Stefan who's the big. I think it's Stefan who's the big Dissection fan.
Well, either way.
Yeah.
And what really blows my mind is all the Lovecraft songs that Obscura did. Just really leaning into the dicier themes too, and really, I think that if we're drawing up a chopping block here, they might need to be slayered near the top too.
Oh no!
Welcome everyone to another episode of Mythbeslandering.
I'm gonna say I think we should probably not pick fights with Obscura based on.
If we get sued by Obscura, do we get extradited to Germany? Quick, Joe, slander more.
Hang on. Have you guys been paying attention to what's going on in Germany lately?
Still better.
Yeah, fair enough. Where were we?
Just generally, I do think the guitar for this one turned out really cool. Also, the bass. I do love that little bass fill before the beginning of the solo section.
Yeah, that was one that I had to rewrite because Connor wrote the original bass fill, as is tradition, and Connor's hands are still larger than mine, so I was not able to play what Connor wrote.
I kind of like what you did better. I think the initial lick was actually kind of more of a Protest the Hero knockoff. But yeah, I think you did a great job of like keeping the kind of rhythmic suggestion of it, but I think it came out a little bit more idiomatic sounding ultimately.
Yeah, and it was also it was much more directly a like chaosification of the very intro bass lick that is in there too. I liked the intro bass lick, and I was a little bummed that it didn't show up anywhere else in the song. So
yeah,
I ended up trying to work it back in that spot, just a little bit more perverted than it was originally, and then brought it back again at the end of the song right before the final chorus, just to get that in there one or two more times. But yeah, I mean that whole solo development section was a lot of fun to do as well, just because like, and by fun I do mean capital F and with an asterisk. The asterisk leads to a tiny little text at the bottom of the page that says "God fucking damn it." That because writing the orchestration and the organ solo was very difficult because those sections weren't really written with chord progressions in mind, and so the entire time I was just like, well, but what am I supposed to do here? Like, what if I'm not just repeating the notes that the guitar is playing? What other notes like don't completely change the character of the section? Because I love the character of the section, the absolutely just crazy unhingedness of it all, and I was like really trying not to change that too much, and there was quite a bit of time spent like looking at the notes and being like, okay, is it this chord, is it this chord, is it this chord? Okay, I think this works. Oh god, these chords, I don't know how to string these chords together in a solo. I don't know how to make a melody happen here.
I think I do recall you being at one point like, hey, I'm gonna need you to annotate this guitar tab with what chords you think these are.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I'm not going to figure this out. I'm going to need to go back to the source on this one. But
yeah.
It was a very fun, like, once the chords actually were figured out, it was interesting to me how, like, I don't know, a lot of the, like, orchestration in that middle section sort of came out sounding a little, like, John Williams-y. Not in, like, traditional John Williams-y, but sort of like the really high register strings and, like, wind instruments that you hear on like Tatooine when like it's kind of like Twilight on Tatooine or something, and like I don't know, I was just like, oh, this actually turns out kind of cool. Turns out these chords this is a good chord progression that Connor did everything but telegraph.
I guess I was channeling some sort of latent modernist tendency that I was not aware of, but though that section did have one minor late game change that ended up, I think, making a kind of a huge difference for my appreciation of the song, which was the change we made in exactly where and to what the key changes hit at the end of that section.
Oh, right.
And I don't actually remember what the initial impetus for that decision was, other than I think we maybe decided that just one of the modulations was maybe a little bit sloppier than we wanted it to be.
Yeah, because like you know, the key is changing by minor thirds throughout like the main development section, which was like, I think accidentally we
romanticism.
Accidentally did a Wagner there. Oh god, this song is so much more problematic.
So canceled.
But like went by thirds, but then somehow it ended up in D minor, and the song starts in
saddest
C
of all
sharp
keys.
minor, so we wanted to end up back in C sharp minor.
But I think
And so-
D was actually a later addition, because I think it was, because it goes from G to D, which is a dominant modulation. I think we were doing something else slightly weirder there before. And I think
No,
suggested,
so we went from C sharp to E to G, and then from G we went to D minor, and then we just have those sort of like 4 bars that we slammed in between to just be like, hey, we're just back in C sharp right now, don't worry about it. Like,
just basically settling down a half step. But the decision that I ended up really liking there was, at a certain point, that transition happened right at the end of the organ solo, and we were having a bit of trouble with the arrangement there. I think, was it Joe, were you complaining about like not knowing what to do with the orchestration on that modulation or something?
I think so.
Just having a hard time figuring out how to get from D to C sharp in that section. And I came up with the idea of like, what if we actually stay in D a little bit longer? And so then that resulted in the decision where we ended up having the palm muted like blast BD variation of the pre-chorus riff comes back the second time, but actually in a different key, which was pretty fun. I think obviously in the context of the song, it's not that obvious because you're kind of just along for the ride with the key changes there, but it was neat, like working out, having that section in C sharp minor going into the chorus at one point and then having the same material in D minor and working from there back into a modulation into what ended up being like the hardest part of the song to play in that immediate next section where it changes back to C sharp. But
cool it was a lot of fun sort of like working all these sort of like Baroque sort of melodies, and like, I mean, the organ solo is just 3-voice counterpoint over a pedal board, but like working all these very Baroque sort of like motifs and like orchestration choices over these extremely not Baroque key changes and chord progressions and everything. It was like it was a very fun development section to work on in that regard.
And I think thematically it ends up working well as sort of a descent into madness.
Totally.
Which is very much the vibe. I get why. I feel like this is one of the sections that sometimes people are less into from the album, but from some of the comments I've seen. But I really enjoy the journey. No,
like I do see like the, there is a bit of a Shaggy Dog quality to some aspects of the song. And I think that is something that we have, attempted to mitigate as much as possible with the older pieces of music, as we pointed out earlier, that was definitely something that we struggled with back then.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that if we were writing it from scratch, there are probably some ways that we could like tie the themes in a little bit more directly in that section. But having gone through the compositional path it went through, I mean, chromatic medians often do a pretty good job of suggesting a kind of madness. So like that worked out nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And overall, just a fun one. Love singing this one. The vocals for it, recording those were a blast. It got surprisingly a little tricky breath-wise, and I do feel like in some ways I wish I had recorded this one later because it was pretty early in our recording process, and I feel like by the end of recording my voice was in a much stronger place, so it would have been fun to like take a new crack at it at the very end. But still, just really enjoy this song. Will always hold a place in my heart as a fun one and one of the OG ones that we got to actualize.
Yeah, likewise. I think like if we had tackled it later on, there are ways that probably we could have handled the improved both the arrangement and the mixing in some aspects. Re-listening to it earlier, I was definitely thinking that, for instance, I think I'm a little heavy-handed with the reverb on this one, but that's the
it's all taking place in caves and Priory and stuff. So
that was my thinking at the time, and that's what you get when you produce the album in the way that we did, is that some songs have to be earlier on in the process than others. So yeah, on the whole, I think it came out pretty nicely. This did end up, I think, being the only song on the album that has any nylon guitar on it, which at one point was not going to be the case. That was definitely something that was a bigger part of our writing back in the day, I think. Because, while Joe was studying organ in undergrad, I was studying classical guitar and was going like, let's put this in all the metal music. And for some reason, this is the only section that kind of survived the edits, I think, was in this song.
Huh. But we'll have to remedy that at some point in the future.
I mean, yeah, certainly can. It's a really fun guitar part to play. I actually think that there's a little bit of For My Pain's Autumn Harmony in the acoustic guitar part in that song, in terms
such a banger.
Yeah, and same key. Well, I mean, I think they tuned down, so it's not literally the same key, but I think that was where I was learning some of those chord voicings from at the time.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Mm.
That was also one of the songs we would also often jam on back in the day.
Yeah.
But yes, that is Beneath Exham Priory. Before we close, what has everyone been listening to lately?
The slow, steady death knell of modernity. How about you, Dan?
Re-listened to Protest the Heroes' Scurrilous earlier.
Good album.
Really good album. It had been a while since I listened to the whole thing, and I listened to Palimpsest like a shitload, because that is such a good album.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been kind of going back and revisiting older Protest the Hero stuff, and so that was the first album of theirs I got into, because Connor showed it to me, and so that was a fun one to go back to. Other than that, I have listened to the new Sabaton. It's okay. The one about oh my god.
Wow, really memorable, it seems.
Killer album.
Musashi. The one about Miyamoto Musashi is pretty cool, but it's all it's gotten so self-referential, and the one about there aren't that many songs about Hannibal crossing the Alps, and the one they did is fine. It's very reiterative of some other Sabaton songs, and I just, oh man, where is the band that recorded Careless Rex?
They're back in 2013.
That's true.
2012, sir.
Fine.
Other than that, I've been listening to a lot of folk punk. Finally got into Justin Townes Earl, who's a country artist, Stephen Earle's son. Who just did some really good, really sad country. And unfortunately passed, I think, a couple years ago now during COVID. And then a lot of the Drones and Tropical Fuckstorm, because always
the classics.
Joe?
K-pop. Large quantities of K-pop.
have you migrated away from the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack over to other K-pop?
That is
or is
very
that still the
predictably
main
how
one?
this all started. I've mostly moved away from it. No, most recently it's been a lot of ATs, aespa, a little bit of Twice, which is like kind of disingenuous to say that I've migrated away from K-pop Demon Hunters, because they're like the group that actually like the real group that recorded some of the tracks for K-pop Demon Hunters. But like not all of them. They did their own versions of a few of the tracks. I don't know what the contract structure for Twice and that film looks like, but it's interesting. And then
Cool.
And then obviously like BTS and Blackpink, because I have it on good authority, Blackpink in your area, and I haven't seen them, but I'm on the lookout. So that
Keep us updated.
That was for all my fellow K-pop stans out there. So
I do have a couple actual ones as well.
Yes, Connor.
I mean, I was watching the promo video for Paul Masvidal's new custom Kiesel guitar the other day, and listening to the backing tracks that they played as he was talking about it, and it made me go, I should listen to Ascension Codes again. And I did that. And you know, that's a pretty good album.
Yeah.
I think like Cynic's an interesting band where like I like everything that they've done in different ways, and not like a ton. Like it's all good, and I get why they're important. But I don't have like strong feelings about any. I feel like every one of their albums is doing something pretty interesting in different ways. I've even come around on Kindly Bent to Free Us more recently. And Ascension Codes, like, I think got a lot of shit for the sort of like drum and bass direction that he took with the new members of the band. But like, you know, I think it would have been worse if he had tried to get someone to just play stuff that sounded like the Shawns without them. So I think it's cool that it went in a different direction, and it's a fun, chill album. And then I was also re-listening to Helveti's Ategnotos recently, which every time I listen to it, I forget how many bangers are on it. I still haven't checked out their new album. Probably should, but that one, good stuff.
Their new album's good. I don't like it as much as Ategnatos, but it is good.
Okay.
And it's
Well, I
still,
should get
I'm
to it
glad
at some
they're
point.
kind of out of their rut period that they were in.
Yeah,
they're
I
sort
really
of like transitional. Who's even in this band? We know Kriegel is. That's
There's still that. I am kind of waiting for the other Danny Filth-sized shoe to drop on Helveti, but until such a time as that happens,
yeah.
still enjoying
I mean, I don't
them.
know. I guess I haven't looked at if there have been other lineup changes since. I think the guitarists that were on Ategnatos, if they're still there, like, I really like the energy that they brought to that.
I think they are. One of them has a custom Solar.
Yeah,
Wolf something?
yeah, Jonas Wolf, possibly, I think maybe his name is. But yeah, like really cool, very like urgent, slightly punky even sometimes guitar parts that I think does a great job of getting them out of the sort of like, you know, like at the gates worship that they were so often accused of in their earlier days, not without reason. No, fun album.
I love a lot of their at the gates worshipy stuff, but you can only do that so many times. But yeah, we have been Mythbegotten, and this has been Mythbechattin. Thank you for joining us, and we will be back soon with episode 5 of Mythbechattin, which will be
hopefully
about
sooner
our
than this one
song,
took.
The Fall.
Well-
Yes, thank you for bearing with us over our bit of a summer vacation we took there.
I don't think any of us is moving in between now and the next episode, so that
God,
should
I
be
hope not.
I just did it, man. I can't keep doing this.
And perhaps you will get other updates from us in the not too distant future as well. Who is to say?
Really committing to the
now,
bit there, Dan.
For now, we have been Mythbechattin. Have a good night.
Toodles.
Bye.
All right, I return.
The horrible secret behind Keyboard Cat.
Wait, what?